attentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. So once again, welcome to today's call and thank you very much for joining us. Moving on to our next session, which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. But before that, I will let all the devotees on the call to please go ahead with your introductions now.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Preeti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvind Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga and to all the devotees assembled here. This is Megha from Naperville. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Megha Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you after a long time.
Same here, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji. Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to the assembled devotees. Yashomati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashomati Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna. Welcome back, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to assembled devotee. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam to you and all Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Vrinda, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Rani.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Varsha from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Varsha Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. This is Sri Haridada Devi Dasi from Fairfax, Virginia, Washington. Dandavat Pranam to everybody in the class and you. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Sri Hari Radha Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Kamari Kedasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj and all the devotees. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Kamadika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indu Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji, Dandot Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Guru Maharaj. This is Shyama Gauri Devidasi from Charlotte. Nice to see you, Mataji, after a long time.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Same here. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Do we have any more introductions at this point before we start the class?
Mataji Maharaj has joined. We can start.
All right. Thank you, Mataji. So welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. We are extremely fortunate to have His Holiness Vedavyasa Priya Swami Maharaj here with us today. And Maharajji would be enlightening us by walking us through Srimad Bhagavatam 5.17.24. Before we jump into this nectarine class, I will request Raj Prabhuji to share a brief introduction about His Holiness Vedavyasa Priya Swami Maharaj. Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam, please take over.
Dandvat Pranam Mataji, Dandvat Pranam Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada. Dandvat Pranam to all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Here is a brief introduction for Maharaj. His Holiness Vedavyasa Priya Swami Maharaj was born in Odisha Sahasra Brahman family in 1944. Maharaj was working as a research biochemist in East Africa and the United States. Within a week of arrival in the US, Maharaj had association of the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Circumstances led Swami Maharaj to give up mundane research and take full shelter of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Since before his first initiation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada in 1977 in New York, Maharaj had served the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in various capacities, including personal secretary to the GBC, president of ISKCON Queens, director of Bharatiya Community Services in New Vrindavan. After 1987, Maharaj shifted attention to serving India, following the instruction of Srila Prabhupada that every Indian trained in the West must help to serve in India. Since 1991, Maharaj has been based in Vrindavan, India, and his services have included overseeing the functioning of an ashram in Vrindavan and also the Bharatpur ashram, and wider services of regional secretary in Punjab and Haryana, and as the chairman of North India Temple Division Council. Since 1998, Vedavyasa Priya Swami Maharaj has been serving Srila Prabhupada and his movement as an initiating spiritual master and has been preaching far and wide throughout the world message of Guru and Krishna. He is currently free of management duties, making a full commitment to giving spiritual guidance, preaching, and teaching to the devotees in all level of advancement in Krishna consciousness philosophy, sadhana, deity worship, and temple seva. All glories to you, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mataji, please take over the call.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I would like to take you over the class from here. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5th, chapter number 17, the descent of river Ganges. And this is the last verse of that chapter, number 20. Sloka number 24 of 17th chapter and 5th canto. This is spoken by Lord Shiva in appreciation of taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Yannirmitam karyapi karma parvani mayam janam gunasanga mohita naha veda nistarana yoga manjasa tasmai namaste vilayodat yatmane. Yet by whom Nirmitam, created, karhi api, at any time, karma parvanim, means which lies in the knots of the fruitive activity. Maya, the illusory energy, jana, a person, ayam, this, guna sarga mohitaha, bewildered by the three modes of material nature, na, not, Veda knows, nistarana yogam, the process of getting out of the material entanglement. Anjasa, sun, tasmai, unto him, the supreme, namaha, respectful obeisances, te unto you, vilaya udaya atmane, in whom everything is annihilated and from whom everything is again manifested. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Krishna clearly states in Bhagavad Gita, the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead binds all of us conditioned souls in this material world. Therefore, without being favored by Him, persons like us cannot understand how to get out of that illusory energy. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who is the cause of the creation and annihilation. Krishna clearly states in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 14th verse, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mame Vaye Papadyante Maya Mitam Tarantite. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. All conditioned souls working within the illusory energy of the Lord consider the body to be the self, and thus they continuously wander throughout the universe, taking birth in different species of life, creating more and more problems. Sometimes they become disgusted with the problems and seek out a process by which they can get out of the entanglement. Unfortunately, such so-called research workers are unaware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His illusory energy, and thus all of them work only in darkness, never finding a way out. The so-called scientists and the advanced research scholars are ludicrously trying to find the cause of life. They take no notice of the fact that the life is already being produced. What will be their credit if they find out the chemical composition of life? All their chemicals are nothing but different transformation of the five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 20th verse, the living entity is never created. Na chayate mriyate va kadachin. There are 5 gross material elements and 3 minor material elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. And they are eternal, there are eternal living entities. The living entity desires a certain type of body, and by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that body is created from the material nature, which is nothing but a kind of machine handled by the Supreme Lord. The Lord is not. The Lord gives the living entity a particular type of mechanical body, and the living entity must work with it according to the laws of fruitive activities. Fruitive activities are described in this verse. Karma vanim maya. The living entity is seated in a machine, the body, and according to the order of the Supreme Lord, He operates the machine. This is the secret of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. The living entity thus becomes entangled in the fruitive activities and this material world. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 7th verse, Manha Shasthani Indriyani Prakriti Karshati. The living entity is struggling very hard against the 6 senses, which include the mind. In all the activities of creation and annihilation, the living entity is entangled in fruitive activities, which are executed by the illusory energy, Maya. He is exactly like a computer handled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The so-called scientists say that the nature acts independently, but they cannot explain what nature is. The nature is nothing but a machine operated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one understands the operator, his problems of life are solved. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 19th verse, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavam Mam Prapadyate Vasudevam Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurvaha. After many, many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. A sane man therefore surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus gets out of the clutches of the illusory energy Maya. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 5th canto, 17th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Descent of River Ganges. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurmilitan Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahim Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutapada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavascha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanutamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanutanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namaha Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this chapter is titled as The Descent of Mother Ganges. Padanakha Nira Janita Janapavan Keshavadrita Vaman Rupa Jai Jagadisha. The chapter begins from Vaman Dev is asking 3 pieces of land from Bali Maharaj. And at the second step, he covered the entire firmament up to the end where the Virja river separates the material and spiritual world. And the Lord's lotus nail touched and perforated the Virja, and water started oozing, touching his lotus feet, washing it, and then falls in the upper planetary systems. So all the way up to the Brahmalok, how the Ganges, the water from the Virja, actually that is, Virja is receiving the waters of Karanodak, Karanodak Shai Vishnu. So in this chapter it is said that actually this is the original waters, the causal ocean. And this water is washing the lotus feet of Vamandev. And it falls in this material world, the upper system, where it is divided into 4 streams. And the one on which is now purifying the existence on the upper planetary system, where Brahmaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka are situated. These waters give direct perception to those who are very austere and meditators of the upper planetary system. And these waters, when they take bath in water of Ganges in the Swargaloka, the upper planetary system, the Ganga is celebrated at Swardhunya, the one who cleanses the Swargaloka from materialism. So because the waters are coming, touching the lotus feet of the Lord, washing, and these waters must be very, very, important, carrying the dust of lotus feet from the lotus feet of the Lord. So naturally, these waters are of the highest purificatory effect, even in Brahmaloka and Tapaloka, Janaloka, Mahaloka, and all the inhabitants are glorifying because they are given a direct understanding to take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord through Mother Ganges. All right. So in this term, all the demigods are also appreciating, and the upper planetary systems, they were very much benefited by the waters of Ganges. Up till now, the waters have not descended yet on the earthly planet yet. So the importance of the appearance of the Ganges is, in the beginning, it is the appreciation of the purifying effect for the residents of the higher planetary system. And especially when Lord Brahma, being in charge of the creation, that is Visarga, and Lord Vishnu himself is the originator and preceptor and controller of everything, both the creation, sustenance, and dissolution. He is always in spec pure condition, so he doesn't have to think about purification. But Brahma does have to think, and he glorifies the waters of Ganges flowing in the topmost of Lokaloka mountain, where Brahmaloka is situated. So he prays appropriately the absolute transcendental opportunity to take bath in the holy waters of Ganges, which is equivalent to taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Brahma being in charge of mode of passion, he is very much, understanding his own material conception through the modes of material nature of Rajogun. We call the false ego is of three types. When it is tainted with the mode of Rajogun, it's called Rajoguni Ahankar. And those ascetics, like the residents of Tapaloka and Janaloka, they reside to mode of goodness by austerity. So they also develop a kind of Sattvaguni Ahankar, the false ego in the mode of goodness. And lastly, Lord Shiva is in charge of the false ego in mode of ignorance. But Lord Shiva being the direct transformation of Sankarshan into Shankar that we have understood a long time before. The Tamoguni Ahankar has its own effect. Rajoguni Ahankar, it has its own effect. But nonetheless, everything is being purified by the waters of Ganges. So Lord Shiva is glorifying the taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Mother Ganges being the impetus for taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So in appreciation of that, Lord Shiva is talking about the effects of the effect of the ahankar tainted by mode of ignorance. So this particular verse is indicative of what people in sheer ignorance, whether they are learned scholars or scientists or what, but why they are becoming bewildered, Lord Shiva is putting up the finger, because of the atheistic envious nature of the living entities. They flare up their tamoguni ahankar, and which is nothing but leading to destruction only. Even though Krishna tells, warns, and gives instructions to the faithful and warns the atheistic people that they will be doomed all the time. Krishna reiterates the warnings through the slokas of Bhagavad Gita, which has been cited in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, that Krishna is the ultimate controller of all these activities, which are conducted under the three modes of material nature: mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Brahma admits himself in Brahma Samhita that because he is in charge of mode of passion, and the constitution of mode of passion is very, very dangerous, because whatever one acts according, if he has carefully avoided the shelter of lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is sure to be doomed. So better, take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord through, developing the higher mode. That is, at least we have to work under the mode of goodness. Maya hi yasya jagadanda satani sute traigunya vishayate tatad veda vitayamana sattvaavalambi parasattvam vishuddha sattvam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Brahma realizes and he instructs that even though we are surrounded by mode of passion, but we have to accept the mode of goodness in order to take a resolute shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So even though our efforts are generated by advice of somebody or self-generated, swataha parataha va mitho vipadyet, and we come to the right conclusion that yes, I have to take shelter of Lord Krishna. So you come out from or shun off your mode of passion and ignorance and stay in the mode of goodness. And thereby you will be purified, will come to Parasattva and Vishuddha Sattvam. That Brahma is teaching that how to transcend the effect of the three modes in this way, by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, or the holy name for that sake in this age of Kali. So similarly, by the influence of the Lord Vishnu, who is the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this whole material cosmic manifestation, he is aloof from the effects of the three modes of material nature. They cannot bind him. So naturally, those tapasvis, or those who are preferring to stay in mode of goodness, they overcome the effect of the ego in mode of goodness, or the ahankar, aham kartutva bhavana, what we call, that I am the doer, even though in mode of goodness, because the resultant reactions, as it's explained in Bhagavad Gita, is that the mode of goodness is also binding. It's not liberating, because it binds the living entity for acquisition of knowledge and happiness. So one has to go beyond that. So Mother Ganges helps even those who are of the egoistic nature in mode of goodness to purify further. And they take shelter of the Mother Ganges and appreciates her being the medium to purify further on the transcendental level, because she has washed the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is an impetus for them to take the direct shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. But now Lord Shiva is telling, for those who are engrossed in the mode of ignorance and their ahankar is tainted with atheistic philosophy, or experimental empirical knowledge, or this or that, but they are on their own. So they have developed ego in ignorance, and that is very disastrous. They are not going to take help from the instructions of the revealed scriptures like Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam either. They want to try their own, whether they are in the right direction, wrong direction. They don't have any what you call standard of reference to. They don't have somebody superior to indicate that you are wrong. They may have some differences, but all the they cannot be accept anybody's tutorship. So such so-called scientists always inventing newer and newer things. They don't understand that they have been in the clutches of Maya. So Daivi Hesha Gunamahi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Prapadyante Maya Metam Taranti Te. But Mameva Eva Prapadyante is never an idea that ever arises in such atheistic impersonalist. They are completely avarice. So the mode of ignorance and ego that has been the false identity they have been entrapped into is that it's Maya's activities. Kshipami asajram asurim yonim mapanna mudha janmani janmani. They are casted birth after birth in the deeper and deeper mode of ignorance, and they will be doomed. They will never come out and go for higher truths. They will be sunk into the mode of ignorance from time to time. So this is how it is understood in Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto. Kapil Dev is explaining this in the beginning of these 24 elements that are being created. by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is called Mahatatvad Vikurvanad Bhagavad Virya Sambhavat Kriya Shaktir Ahankaras Trividha Samapadyata Vaikarikas Tejas Tamasascha Yato Bhavaha Manasvastrendriyanam Cha Bhutanam Mahatamapi. Mahatattva means from Mahatattva. Mahatattva is the formation of the reflection that is coming from Satchidanand, transformed into Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Mode of three modes of material nature are thus formed, and mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So that is a Sattva, Raja, and a Tama. So Vikurumat means they are getting transformed. Bhagavat Virya Sambhavat. It is the internal potency of Lord Shri Krishna, and it is coming out from Kriya Shakti, the active creative potency. This is coming along through the internal potency of the Lord. Ahankaram, this Ahankar means the false ego is coming in the form of material nature tainted by the three modes of material nature. So they are of three types. Samapadyate means came out. Vaikarika means got transformed. Sattva, Sattva Guni, or the Ahankar that is tainted by mode of goodness. Tejas Rajogani means those the Ahankar, the false ego that is tainted by Rajoguna. Cha and Tamasaha, Tamoguni means the false ego tainted by the mode of ignorance. Cha means and, Yata means from whom, Bhava Udgama means emergence, Manasa of the mind, Cha and Indriyana, that is means knowledge and performance generating in senses. Cha and Bhutanam Mahatam means the five, Panchamahabhut means ultimate formation of the earth, water, fire, air, ether. Api means although. The translation is given that from Krishna's own internal potency, the Mahatattva generates material false ego. This material false ego tainted by mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, they also become very active. They are not inactive, but because they are coming from the internal potency, so therefore the external potency is also keeping them active. So from these three material false ego is creating mind, the knowledge acquiring senses, then working senses, and also the Panchamahabhut means earth, water, fire, air, ether. So this is the composition. So naturally, Lord Shiva is in charge of the false ego and mode of ignorance, and because he has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord through Mother Ganges, he appreciates the advent of Mother Ganges to be the impetus for all the living entities, including from Brahma to the smallest ant, to get purified. Because it is concerned with the lotus feet of the Lord. This kind of consciousness, tainted with the three modes of material nature, becomes the conditioning on the jivas in three different ways. But still, Maya is superior to the three modes of material nature. And therefore, all of them have a hard time to take shelter. Otherwise, even we are getting the direct transcendental method without even purifying the our false ego separately. We are given the holy name and swim in the holy name, which is directly imported from the Golok Vrindavan. So we need to always remain purified for the intention to take the shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. What is the use to approach the Lord if we have no intention to take shelter? So therefore, what is the subjective nature according to these three different modes of material ahankar, that people are struggling and not knowing the intent behind taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So Lord Shiva is explaining very much in the reference to the amazement, because Krishna is directly telling that ultimate aim for all living entities is to surrender into the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as we say that even though systematic knowledge is given, or every day we are bombarding in our classes about, give up the false ego through taking shelter. Pranardapi sunechena tarorapi sahishnana amanina manatena kirtaniya sadahari. Yet in our daily activities and in the modes of material nature and that affects our false ego have not yet allowed us to take full shelter. So we should understand that why it is so. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvam mam prapadyate. After many lives in the human form, that one who has realized the necessity to take the shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. And that too, Prabhupada said in some other purport, that only if such Jnani comes in contact with a pure devotee, then he convinced himself after many births that yes, Vasudevam Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. He is very rare. So taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, Mother Ganges is most conducive medium to purify our consciousness, and that is the opinion of the residents of upper planetary system. So this is the important thing that we have to understand. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made a very simple for us to approach the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But he said that even this methodology, that this Harinam Ganga, or the transcendental waters of the holy name, one has to take bath daily and deep himself, or immerse himself in the holy rivers of the holy name. That is the direct methodology. Of course, when we go to the pilgrimage where Mother Ganges flows, we are reminded to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because she took shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, what is the impetus, even for the demigods, as we have just seen throughout this entire chapter? Chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also, should be constantly flowing. Our chanting should not be tainted or stagnant. We have to take bath in our own stagnant chanting. That is not good. It should flow. The flowing waters is considered to be the pure water, even though it may carry during the rainy season the mud. Doesn't matter. Flowing waters are always pure. Stagnant waters of chanting will not purify us, because stagnant water will get polluted. Of course, one cannot pollute the intrinsically pure who have taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, cannot be deviated, cannot be impure anytime. But our chanting should be flowing, not stagnant chanting. The still waters start stinking. You can't take bath in it. Anyway, Mother Ganges flows in Bengal throughout, and the devotees always take bath. But this pukur vyavastha, the arrangement of the pukur at every home, of course, in the lowland or in the area where the Ganges flow, the pukur system is having fresh water. So they take bath. But in the same water which is still stagnant, how long that can? It is better to go to the Ganges with a devotional mood in order to take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. That is more purifying than any other method. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much fond of Kolavicha Sridhar, who was living in a very torn hut near the bank of the Ganges. But he would live on a very bare necessity by earning little money, simply selling the leaves of banana, the stalk of banana. So, and that is so dirt cheap, nobody, need to even purchase. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come and tease Sridhar to, give him free. If says, oh no, I cannot give you free, I must charge because that will be the income. I will have to worship 50% to Mother Ganges, then the rest I have to cook some boga to offer to Mother Ganges, and some prasadam I have to pay. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would tease him, and Sridhar, even though he would protest, but he would be very pacified that, oh, no wonder this beautiful child has simply put me into little trouble. It's good, I need to tolerate more. So Sridhar would be very happy to be cheated every time when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his childhood will come. But in Mahaprakash Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he ordered Sridhar to come, and take the mercy. So Sridhar was very much afraid that some kind of pranks Mahaprabhu will be bestowing upon me. It will be very shameful. But the devotees pulled him out. No. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is calling for you. He is going to benedict you. So Sridhar comes with fearful attitude, with folded hand, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him. You are a true devotee, and you are also one of my associates. I thank you very much that you have come to show such humility at your command. You can survive with Mother Ganges, taken shelter of Mother Ganges. You have taken the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appreciated Sridhar, Kolavicha Sridhar. And we can understand that Mother Ganges have full glorification only because she has been descending, washing the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any more thing that we have to go through, because this is the end of the chapter. Mother Ganges is descending in the early times, and we are reading that the entire chapter of the creation and the planetary systems. Then afterwards, the descendants of King Priyavrata, who divided the tract land called Jambudvipa. So then descendant of King Priyavrata, who was the brother of Uttanapad, Dhruv Maharaj's father. So all these descriptions are coming in order to extol the creativity or creative energy by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and always at every step of his creation, the starting from higher planetary system to all the way to the earthly planetary system, indicative of the taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself through Mother Ganges. So this is quite a historical, descent of Mother Ganges to purify the entire planetary system. So, is there any question or comments on this particular chapter?
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj, for a very nice class on the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th cantos, 17th chapter, 23rd verse. And it was enlightening enlightening details, Maharaj, like advent of Ganges and glorification of Ganges, how Ahankar is tainted by mode of ignorance. And one question I have, Maharaj, like we understand that through mantra meditation we control the mind, and through reading the scriptures we gain intelligence, and through following regulative principles our senses are controlled. But false ego, like how to control false ego, I think you are mentioning about lotus feet of the Lord, but how to practically think about that point, Maharaj, like what does it mean when you say about lotus feet of the Lord?
Ego is even in mode of goodness, because that is the false identification due to the effect of the three modes of material nature. So that identification is binding us in the material world. So naturally, this false ego has to be smashed. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke about the holy name, however, it must be chanted in the humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, devoid of all sense of false prestige. That he should not, ask respect from others, rather he should be ready to give full respects to everyone else. Only and he should be more tolerant than a tree. So only in that state of mind one can chant the holy name constantly. The river of the holy name can only be flowing constantly with this attitude. This attitude is without false ego, whether it is in mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. That is the transcendental state, which is coming as an effect of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So when one becomes humbler than the grass on the street, one becomes more tolerant than the tree, and one is becoming more respectful to others without demanding respect for himself. Only in that state of mind one can chant the holy name constantly. So it is the state of mind. Mind is the seat of false ego. Of course, in three subtle faculties, mind, intelligence, and ego is there. But this ego, in mode of ignorance, affects the mind too. So mind is tainted with the false ego and in the effect of ignorance, which is destructive. It doesn't take any shelter. The modern scientist and impersonalist, those who are averse to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, they have to be, smashed by Lord Shiva, who is in charge of the false ego. If they worship Lord Shiva, he will surely smash. Otherwise, in our devotional career, Guru has a business to smash the false ego of his disciple. Whether it is tainted with mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, doesn't matter. A disciple is cultivating the discipline to go back home to Godhead, not with ego. He has to be liberated from the effects of the three modes of material nature, even at the ego level. So it is not technique, but it is the methodology to become free from the influence of these modes. So therefore, we need a transcendental medium. Mother Ganges is a transcendental medium to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So similarly, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the transcendental medium to take the shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. So mind also is tainted with false ego, right, Maharaj? So yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. If anybody has any questions or realizations, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This attitude that's expressed by the Trinadapi Sunichena verse, what is the logical connection between having that attitude of humility and being able to chant Krishna's name always? How do I make that logical leap between that attitude of humility and being able to chant always?
Yeah, if we have difficulty in chanting constantly, then we have to look into the factors which are preventing it. So we improvise those aspects. And ultimately, we'll come to know that we have to cultivate humility as such an extent by exemplification, pranadapi shunichena, thinking lower than the straw in the street. And it is not simply thinking. Our Goswamis were having the application that they hold what you call trona. Trona means the
straw,
grass or the straw to pick up in the teeth. Trona the piece. You have to pick up in the teeth and approach the spiritual master. What does it mean? Who picks up straw? Who eats straws? Human beings do not. But I'm the lowest of the living entity. I'm lowest of the creature, like an animal. You know, animals do not have ego. They can have some kind of in struggle for existence, their material power, but to one who holds the straw in their teeth is like a cow. What kind of ego a cow would have? She eats grass and gives you milk. More benevolent. All the activities of a tree is also more benevolent. And these examples are very important. Even Krishna himself in Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies the function of the tree. And if a human being can cultivate his attitude in functioning like a tree, etanvanchanva safalyam dehinam iha deheshu pranai arthe dhiya vacha archanam dehinam sada. the human being must cultivate the attitude of a tree just for serving others. The tree is so benevolent. It gives shade, it gives its wood, it gives its fruit, everything. He becomes sold out. Like the Dichimuni. He lived for the sake of Krishna and helped demigods to take his bones for making Vajra to kill Indra. That is the nature of a devotee. Okay, use me. Amen. So cultivating humility at such an extent will help us depend upon the holy name alone. And every success comes by taking such a resolute shelter at the holy name alone. According to Haridas Thakur, that is enough.
So I guess you're equating chanting the holy name always with seeing Krishna as our only shelter. Those
Only
are
dependency, all the dependency, all the six requisites for taking shelter should arise in an embodiment of a devotee. It's a soul surrendered, means a sold out servant, which bears the same meaning.
Mm-hmm. One other thought that occurs to me in this false ego connection is that I imagine that there are some people who, out of false ego, will chant some big number of rounds a day, out of false ego. And if they're able to chant so much out of false ego, then it seems like in their case, the false ego is not such an impediment.
Well, you can't monitor them. It is for time being only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Maharaj.
Haridas Thakur. We have been forbidden to imitate Haridas Thakur.
I think I missed something you just said. You said they cannot imitate Haridas Thakur, right?
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, you mentioned about in the class, like our chanting should be flowing, not stagnant. So can you please elaborate more on that? Like practically, how do we see that I am doing chanting in that way and not stagnating?
Well, to finish 16 rounds, and that too with an effort, without willingness or without any priority before it, it's a very rare thing, because in our active life, our mind takes us on a bewildered journey, and we can't decide what is the priority. So when the priority is misplaced, then it becomes stagnant.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Does anybody have any questions or realizations? And one comment by Tiffany Mataji, I'll just read that, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. I'm grateful you saying we must come to the mode of sattva and surrender to the Lord. We must keep our chanting flowing. Stagnant water will begin to stink. Thank you very much. So if nobody has any questions or comments, can we end the class here? Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj, for your enlightening association, and we are very grateful, and we would like to have your association in the future. So let's play our obeisances to Maharaj. Vancha kalpataru
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Beautiful class, Maharaj.
So much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hari Bol.
We'll end the call here. Hare Krishna.